Hello, welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I am here with Susan. Hi.
Hey, Guthrie.
So we have a couple things right off the bat to start with.
We do.
Yes. As you get your
Can we do something different?
yeah. As long as you get your microphone closer,
How's this?
much better. Yes,
Can we tell people how to get in touch with us in case they want
that's
to?
what I was gonna do. We had the
Yay!
exact same idea, actually.
I like it.
Yeah. So the short answer is that or the short story is that we may be looking to bring on a contractor or two for a thing or three. Nothing for sure. But if you are a senior UI person, UI slash UX designer who can do high fidelity work. I mean, we do a lot of user testing, we do a lot of low fidelity work, but in this particular case, you can do high fidelity prototyping, and you have a knowledge about UX, about the psychology behind UX, or behavioral design would be another term that you would know a little bit about. And you might be interested in a remote, mostly full-time contractor position of various sorts that probably pays quite well. You can get in touch with me. My email is info@theteamw.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and maybe we can kind of put you in the we have a process for potentially having people who might be interested in being contractors, as we kind of clients kind of come and go and need various things. So if you are either if you want to get on the list of potential contractors with us, or if you are a potential client who wants to maybe get some of these contractors, get in touch, please. So info@theteamvalue.com, or add me on LinkedIn, or socials, or etc. etc. Is there anything else you wanted to add about that?
No, that's fine. Or
I
if
will
you want to
say,
if people want to get in touch with us for any purpose.
yeah. For this particular role, we're probably looking for people who are more senior. That's not
Yeah.
our preference. If it was up to us, we would actually bring on a bunch of junior people. We love working with junior people, and we know that if you're a junior UXer out there, it is tough sledding these days. So I'm well aware, but we we just do whatever our clients want.
Do what the clients want.
And at this particular point, I think we're looking for quite senior people, but hopefully in the future I'll be asking for juniors as well. But at the moment, just seniors. And I will say, if you are at all interested, I know we talked about the UI high fidelity person, but if you are a UX researcher or a low fidelity UX designer, or an information architect or something else, and you want to get in our list, if we, when we have people and clients, we can just let me know. We have just a little short, it's a very short, just sort of get to know you call. And then if we think, hey, this might be a good match as business comes in, then we get in touch. So if you're interested in all in that, you can again get in touch with me at info@theteambetter.com. All right.
Okay. That was our little ad. People have little ads at the beginning of their podcast episodes. That was our little
buy a mattress. Also buy a mattress. All right. So you want to jump into today's topic?
Yeah.
It is. It might become two topics. We were
Depends
unclear.
on how much we have to say about the one.
About embodied cognition.
Embodied cognition.
It's a weird. It's a niche. It's kind of a weird behavioral sciencey thing. Has some applicability to UX, though it's also sort of not. And certainly, so we're gonna go, and hopefully
See
we
how
have
long that takes us, and if it
we're
doesn't
gonna
fill up
see
our
if we
time, we
can
got another topic in the hopper.
Yeah. So let's start out with embodied cognition, and we'll see we'll see if we can fill
See
40
where it
minutes.
goes. All right.
Complex term,
Yeah.
lengthy, sciencey, academic.
Yeah. What does it mean?
Let's go backwards. Cognition.
Cognition is thinking. Thinking.
Yeah, really. That's your definition of cognition, huh? Thinking.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay.
Why? What's your definition of
I,
cognition?
I don't know. I don't think I
You didn't
have a
have
good
one.
one. I just didn't. Hold
Cognition
on.
is just another word for thinking.
Why don't they use thinking?
Why don't they call it embodied thinking? They should.
Yeah.
We
It's
like
not academic enough.
fancy terms. Yeah, we
They
like
do. No, well, we don't, but
my degree in psychology, I specialized in cognitive psychology. So we could say I specialized in
thinking.
thinking psychology.
I looked up Merriam-Webster.
What do they say
cognition
What do they
as
say?
a noun.
Yeah, and
A cognitive mental process.
you can't use the word cognitive when you're defining.
Well, because that's the noun. So let's talk about
Okay.
cognitive as the adjective.
Yeah.
Of relating to, being or involving
Thinking.
conscious intellectual activity,
Oh my
such as
God.
thinking, reasoning, or remembering. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
All right.
Do you consider remembering thinking? Is remembering different from thinking, or is remembering a part of thinking?
Oh God, you're really being tough on me.
Well, you're the one who brought it up.
I would consider. Okay. All right. Let's get more exact. All right. I guess if cognition has to do, I guess I'm going to change my definition. It's not thinking, it's mental processing of information. And within that, you would have things like thinking, and you would have things like remembering.
Okay.
So I don't think remembering is the same as thinking, but I think they are both very related mental processing or cognitive processing and part of cognition.
Okay, so in your head, it's different.
I think you can. Yes, it is different because I think we can talk. No, it's just remembering is part of cognition. Memory is part of cognition. Okay, now that we've totally messed that up.
Yeah. So thinking. Now what's embodied? That's almost worse.
Embodied, yeah, that is true. You should look up what the definition of that is. But to me, it means being related to the body, the human body, or I guess a dog's body. So,
well, hold on. Embodied.
Yeah.
Embodied. So do you want embody as the verb?
Yeah.
So
I want embodied as the adjective.
Embodied.
I have to tell you that by now, anyone who is listening has hit end the episode.
Delete. Delete.
Because we are really embodied has to do with it's an adjective that describes.
I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing a separate definition for it.
By the
embodied.
way, this term embodied cognition is not my term.
Why did you invent such a term?
I didn't invent it.
Please send your mail. All right. So Merriam-Webster has embodied as the verb form as to give a body to, a spirit. Okay. That's one. Okay. Two, to deprive of spirituality or make concrete and perceptible. No. Three, to cause to become a body or part of a body.
All right. This is all bad.
Or four, to represent in human or animal form.
Okay. Forget that. So it apparently has a different meaning. Look, embodied cognition is the idea that mental processing occurs in the body and throughout the body not just in the brain.
They should call it body thinking.
I like that.
Right? Isn't that perfect?
I like that. That's much better, but it doesn't have a fancy term. So, no, that's what it is body thinking. So the idea is, we tend to think that all of our thinking occurs up here in our brains. And it's almost like there's our brain and then there's the rest of our body. And thinking, we don't to usually talk about thinking with our body. We think that all the thinking goes on in our head, and it doesn't. There's actually a lot of thinking that goes on in the body. The body is collecting information, and the information it collects is part of our decision and our perception of the world. So it's not all going on up here.
Now, this is apparently a myth. I remember as a kid learning that some dinosaurs had a brain like in their tails. That there was a cavity in their spinal column where they thought there
really
were
sorry
nerves.
you had such a bad childhood education.
According to the Smithsonian magazine,
That's not
that
true.
Actually is a myth. That is not true. There is a cavity, but such cavities are relatively common. There was something, probably not nerves, that were filling that space. So there was a cavity, and there was a theory that, well, maybe it was a second brain because the dino brain famously is tiny.
Yeah.
It's a tiny,
and they
stupid.
Thought maybe there was another
maybe
one
there's
somewhere
another
else.
something that helped it out,
No.
but I think that's
I think
perhaps
that's false.
apocryphal. So where's the thinking happening then? If it's body thinking, is it happening in my fingers?
Yes.
So
And your arm and your muscles. And
so I thought that the brain did all the thinking. I thought that the nerves sent the signals up through the spinal column to the brain, where it was all the thinking was done.
It's possible that is true, but I think the term embodied cognition is trying to make sure that we don't discount the information that's coming in throughout the body, not just from our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, because that's all in the head. And to understand that our interaction with the world through the rest of our body, through touch, pressure, our movement, is a significant part of our thinking. You want some examples?
Sure, you can give some examples, and then I'll keep asking tough questions.
Okay. One of the examples that isn't talked about a lot when you read the literature on this, I don't think, is movement, and how much our movement through the world affects things. So there is research that shows that when you walk through a doorway, you forget things. You let go of memories. The process of walking through a doorway affects your memory. Isn't that odd? I just find that odd. So you're just physically moving in the world can affect what you remember and what you don't remember. There's research on the fact that if you're sitting in a chair that has scratchy fabric on it and having a conversation with someone, you will then rate that conversation as being prickly, difficult, not comfortable. And if you're sitting in a chair with nice, soft, cushy chair with soft fabric, you'll rate your conversation with the person as being comfortable. If you're holding a cold can of soda and you're having a conversation with someone, you'll rate that conversation as kind of not very warm. And if you're holding a warm cup of coffee, you'll rate it as being warm. If you're holding a heavy book, you'll rate that book as being really important. And if it's a lighter book, you'll say it's not. If you look at a resume of someone and you're holding a piece of paper with the resume, you'll rate them as being kind of a lightweight in their field. And if you put that same resume, on a heavy clipboard and you hold it that way, you'll say, oh, this person's serious. They've got some weighty experience. So our perceptions and our decisions and we're influenced by our body in ways that and a lot of this is largely unconscious. So we are not aware that this is affecting our thinking and our decisions, but it is. And I think we just discount a lot our bodies when we talk about how people think and how people decide and how people interact, with technology.
So right. Okay. So that was a lot of examples.
Sorry.
That's all.
That's all the examples I have, so that's all I can say.
So to summarize then, aren't you just saying that touch is an important sense? I mean, you talked about movement.
No, movement is too. Movement is too because the typical, the very classical example that's given is about how how people catch a ball that's been thrown to them.
Right.
Like how do people catch a ball? Like you watch baseball, right? And the ball's coming and it's really high up and it's really far away and the catcher goes right underneath it and just goes and catches it perfectly. How is that happening? How does that happen? And it's not because they're calculating in their brain the trajectory of the ball and the wind and the right. They're doing it with with the movement of their bodies.
Right.
So I don't think it's just touch, although I think touch is, which in the world of human factors we call, haptic, right? Haptic interface or tactile. So touch is a big part of it, but that's not all it is. It's also that movement in space.
I mean, there is a very fundamental part that I guess UXers often don't come across unless you are in like the ergonomic, automotive space.
Yeah.
Which is that when you are talking about all the things that people do, a lot of it isn't, a lot of it is all the things that we don't do in apps. Like a lot of our like modern human stuff is very, like you said, head centric.
Yeah.
We watch, we listen, we talk, we eat lunch, we smell things.
Yeah.
Right? These are all sort of very like thinking, based. But if you think about kind of the core important things that an animal does, if we go more animalistic, there's a lot of automatic movement that we do.
Movement in general.
When we talk about habits, when you're playing the piano or scrolling on a phone, right, where our thumbs are moving, but just the process of walking, and balancing. I mean, walking on uneven rocks. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty tough physics problem, all things considered, right? You have, the slope and the angle and your foot slips and, the curve and all that stuff. And we just do it automatically. There's sort of a naturalness to it. Clearly, we are thinking, we are processing, we are responding to what's happening. But it's not.
But I think, yeah, I hear you. Although I also think that from a design and human factors and behavioral design point of view, we don't pay enough attention to the fact that this walking and this moving through space is not as automatic as we think. So this is why, the research shows that if people are walking and interacting with their phone, they are missing a large percentage of what is going on around them. And this is why you have don't text while driving, right? Because you've got competing sensory demands. And I think when it comes to our bodies, we kind of take for granted that we can move through space and we can move our limbs and we can move our fingers, and that's so automatic. It doesn't require thought, or it doesn't require brain processing. And so therefore it's perfectly okay to also do these other things, but there is a limit. I mean, there's some of that's true. I mean, you can walk and talk at the same time. You can walk and look at your phone at the same time, but it's not 100%. We can't do those things perfectly. We are sharing resources when we do them, and I think we don't take that into account enough.
Yeah. I mean,
and you mentioned automotive.
Pull something up. Yeah, keep going. I gotta pull.
Well, automotive, I think, is and then there's because then there's the situation and the context and the body. So if I can give you an example, so you've probably heard me mention, well, maybe I've talked a little bit about some of the challenges I think there are with cars that don't have manual controls, where everything's done on a screen. And in my family, we have a high-tech car which is very screen based, and we have another one that's not so high-tech, that is mainly button based and physical button based. And I'm always complaining about the high-tech screen one. And here's an example. So my husband and I were in the car. We're driving. He's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. And we need to get directions to a certain location. And I'm trying to remember there was something, or maybe it was there was something we were trying to do where in my car I could just, actually it must have been something. It had to be volume, or it had to be something else. Because in my car, I would have reached out and grabbed a little dial and turned it a tiny amount. And in this car, I had to move my finger on the screen and try and it was probably temperature control, and try and move a little scroll bar while the car is moving. And so the car is going up and down, and I can't get my finger to not go up and down. So I think sometimes, there's just situations like that where we're not taking into account the way our bodies work and controls that better fit the body.
Hold on. That
What?
The whole anti-button thing, that war's been lost, and
No,
all the buttons are coming.
No,
all the buttons are coming back.
Well, good.
Yeah, all the automotive makers.
Why? Why
What do
did
you
they
mean, why?
find? Well, it was a dumb idea to get rid of them in the first place.
Yeah,
But
they knew
what
that.
has made them realize that they need to come back?
Oh,
Complaints
the
about it,
scores are terrible. people really want buttons on their interfaces.
and they have accidents.
I don't think they care about that. I mean, I'm sure they care, but like
The automotive companies listening are like, "What?
well,
You
it's
mean so
not.
you think it's just the preference scores? People saying we want our
Yeah.
buttons.
I think
Really, buttons are
BMW.
coming back.
Oh yeah. On all the
See, I didn't know that.
BMW, I think, did a big survey, and they realized that like people, there was a small blip, especially when the first Teslas came out,
Yeah,
where this cool, like everything was a screen, was really cool.
yeah,
But now everything is just a screen, and it's
yeah.
no longer as cool. And so what's coming back is that buttons are seen as a premium feature.
Right, which is nice, but that's not why they're important. They're important from a human body
Yeah, but they
criteria.
cost more, so that's why they got rid
I
of all the
know, but
buttons.
it really is a lot easier to just grab a little knob and turn it a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's why the buttons are coming back. I'm telling you.
Good, good.
Yeah, for sure. In like 90% of the car manufacturers. Now, maybe not all the buttons. It's not going to look like a 1955 whatever with
No, it
like the
doesn't have to
17
be
buttons,
like that.
but yeah,
But
no, at least a
oh,
couple buttons.
see
Turn
now
stocks.
you put me in a good mood.
We talked about buttons in cars a million times. Here's what I want to talk about.
What?
I pulled up the anatomy and functional areas of the brain. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think about because we never actually just do sort of the most straightforward, the most what's the is there like a razor or like a theorem or whatever it is that's like sometimes like what's the ones like the simplest answer is often the correct answer.
Yeah.
And some people can yell at me. I forget which one it is. So I'm sure there are important biological scientific reasons for why this isn't true, but
Okay.
I don't know them.
Okay.
Why don't we equate brain size with I don't want to say importance, but with maybe percent of thinking capacity?
Well, we
And
do
maybe we
in
do.
a way. We do
So
in a
let me
way.
just give you a quick example, right?
Yeah.
The the occipital lobe,
Occipital. Yes.
occipital lobe, which is often for vision, sight, image, projection,
Yeah.
is probably, and maybe I'm wrong, probably we'll just say maybe it is larger than the auditory
It is.
area. Maybe
It is
twice
large.
as large, something like
It
that.
is larger than the auditory area.
And and humans do a lot more with sight.
We're very visual animals.
Very visual.
Very visual.
Compared to sound.
Yes, and vision I think is more complicated than sound.
No.
Well,
our vision is more complicated.
Our vision is complicated.
Right?
It is very complicated.
Right?
Well,
you tell that to like a bird.
Ours is not as complicated as some others. I mean, there are, different,
for sure.
different organisms have more complicated vision.
Our olfactory smelling thing is tiny compared to dog,
to some other
and
animals.
our sense of smell sucks compared to a lot of other mammals.
Right. That's right.
That, I mean, if we're being honest, a lot of other animals communicate by pee. So it's very important.
We needed to be reminded.
That's how it works. That's how it works. That's the dog and the fire hydrants.
Okay.
Marking territory and stuff. So Okay, so I mean that's right, and so that I'm not saying that proves my point, but that is like that, right? Like we are more vision heavy
Yes.
than we are auditory,
Auditory.
and
Yes.
the part of our brain devoted to vision and image perception and image
Is
recognition
quite
is larger than the
large.
auditory section.
That's
So
right.
even though we both have 2 ears and 2 eyes,
Yep.
so there is sort of like the parts that are big or the parts that are um, that are doing a lot,
Yeah.
right? If it's probably unlikely that there's a part of the brain that's just inefficient, that's like large just because, right? Like
Yeah,
our
probably
brains
not.
are overcrowded already as humans, which is
Yeah.
why we have all sorts of trouble giving birth and why we have to steal from other sections. And I mean, we're
Yeah.
packing
We're
stuff in
packing
pretty
things
tight
in.
already.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that premise, then let's look at the brain.
Yeah.
If we just look at what sections are pretty big.
Yeah.
And this is not, I mean, look, I pulled this up from somewhere. I'm sure there's other ways you can slice it and dice it, but things that are pretty big. The cerebellum.
Yep.
Pretty big.
Yep.
That would be motor functions, posture,
Right.
balance,
that's your movement,
coordination of
world.
movement, stuff that's real deep down there. I think, and also I would say of medium size and kind of connected to it is the brain stem, which also has respiratory centers, right? Breathing,
involuntary.
Yeah.
Digestion.
So between those two, low level baseline functions,
body stuff,
pretty big.
Pretty
okay.
big.
No, that sort of makes sense, right? Like think of all
our bodies are pretty big. We have
pretty
a lot
big.
of,
We're pretty big creatures, right? All right. Okay. So there's that. Visual, we already said.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair. Then coming next to the visual area is the sensory association area.
Yeah.
That's also
big.
Pretty big.
Yep.
Right? So do you know a little bit more about this? I don't have a whole lot for what that is. Sensory association.
Well, that's going to be all your haptic, tactile.
Right. And then they've sort of split this into I see. They sort of split this into multiple sections here. So there's the sensory area, sensation from muscles and skin.
Yep.
I think I was talking about the sensory association area, which is probably like, that's a feather. This feels like wood. The wind it's like windy today, right? So it's taking the sensories that we're doing and associating them with stuff. And then of course there's just the sensory area, which is the sensation from muscles and skin. That's pretty big.
Yep.
Then you have the motor function area, pretty big.
Right.
Maybe medium sized, right? So throwing a baseball, typing, things we want to do. Okay. Then you have motor function, big in motor function, which has to do with sight, right? But that would be like driving a car, right? So riding a bike, eye movement, orientation, also with the ears too, right? With the balance and that kind of stuff.
Playing an instrument.
That's big. That's big.
I know.
Then, of course, huge. We have the frontal lobe, where you do all the creativity, and
but we tend to
that's
think,
huge.
But we think the frontal lobe is like
90%.
This big, right?
Right, and it's and like probably. Let's see. Hold on. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any other stuff. There's a pretty big area that's the association area,
right?
Which is short-term memory, equilibrium, emotion.
Yes.
So between the the frontal lobe with its higher mental,
Right.
functions, and the temporal lobe with its association area with emotion and stuff.
Yep.
That's, maybe that's half. It's a lot.
It's a
40%.
lot.
It's
That's
big.
all. That's
And we
our.
talk about that a
That's our.
lot.
That's our mental processing,
It's the
both conscious
human,
and
stuff.
unconscious. And unconscious.
Yeah. Okay. So, but then, right? The there's a pretty small little area that's the Broca area for muscles of speech,
So we can talk.
but it's small. There's the auditory area, which is kind of nearby, sort of floating out there. That's for hearing, pretty small. There's the emotional area. That's pain,
But this
hunger.
is somewhat misleading.
No,
You don't.
it's all very misleading. I'm just going through all the. I just want to make sure that I didn't
You
miss.
got everything.
Yeah.
Where's the part of the brain for chocolate? Just kidding.
That wouldn't be in smelling,
I'm
right?
just kidding.
Okay, all right, but between the cerebellum, which is motor function,
Movement.
the brainstem, which is
Yeah.
respiratory,
Yeah.
the sensory area,
Yeah.
which is sensation from muscles and skin, the uh, somatosensory association area,
Yeah.
which is evaluation of weight, texture,
Mm-hmm.
temperature,
Mm-hmm.
which then goes to object recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And the motor function area for eye movement and orientation,
Mm-hmm.
and the motor function, if I hadn't already said that, for initiation of voluntary muscles.
Mm-hmm.
That cluster is a huge portion
Right.
of the
Right.
brain, and it's probably the part that, as in the UX field, we talk about
The
the
least.
least by far.
That's
Even
right.
though it accounts for, we'll just say 30, 40,
Percent of
50% of the
our
brain,
brain.
we talk about it
Very little.
6% of
Right.
what we do.
Right.
And even
Right.
then, even this podcast, right? You were able to list every potential way that it works with UX in some capacity in 2 minutes. There's just not a lot of interaction there
There's
because
not a lot of there's not a lot of thought about how well there's more interaction than we talk about.
I think that's true. Yeah. Yeah. We won't
Because
talk about it.
when and I think and here's what, you're sitting in front of a screen, little screen on your mobile, big screen on your desktop, whatever. And you're interacting with some app or some software. We tend to focus, both as the user and as the designer, on the visual element. But it's as though we're not in our bodies and we're just two big eyes that is using the app. But you know what? Our bodies are involved. Our bodies are involved. Even and I think we tend to demote the importance of fine motor skill.
Yeah.
Like you move the mouse, you move the scroll bar, you click, you move your finger. And because those are easy actions for us as humans, unless you have a disability, you tend to just dismiss it. Like, no, that's nothing. We don't have to worry about that. But it's a big part. Your body and your movement is a big part, and it only becomes obvious, I guess, when they're like, I remember Guthrie doing years ago, doing design work for okay, so the clean rooms when they're manufacturing like chips.
Yes.
They have
Yes.
clean rooms where they're wearing these suits. I mean, they look like they're going into space or something. And so one of my clients
They have to be like 10 times cleaner than an operating room.
It's really nutty. So one of my clients was the company who cleans the clean suits. Okay? Because it's like a cleaning service for clean suits. There is such a thing. And this was my client. And they had this thing in their factory and in their warehouse. They had this big dashboard. I don't even remember what was on the dashboard, but it had to do with orders in and orders out and what people should be working on. I mean, it was like the intelligence hub of the whole place on this huge dashboard, like at a train station, big train station. You look at the board and it's always changing and it's telling you what trains are coming in. It was like that. And I went to visit on location, and this big dashboard, this huge board is high up. And this was in a place that, for a variety of reasons I won't go into, primarily hired Asian women whose height is, on average, like, I don't know, for this group, 5'3" or something. And that board was so high up that everybody had to do this big stretching with their neck, and they were getting all kinds of people with neck problems, right? But did anybody think of this when they were designing this whole thing? No, they weren't thinking about how high should the thing be and how much that might affect your neck. And I see this so much. Another client where they were programming electronics in the building space. And to do that, they're using a laptop, except they're walking around the site, the construction site, holding a laptop. Do you know how hard laptops are heavy? You hold it in one hand for very long. That hurts.
Hey, depends on the laptop.
Well, these were regular laptops. They were quite heavy. So they're holding a laptop with one hand
You can tell who the PC person is. They're heavy regular laptops.
Trying to use it with the other hand while walking around a construction site with the wires and the cables and the ladders and all of that. And, the people who had designed the software, had they considered that this was really, and so what would happen when we made, and this is why making a site visit is so important, is that the users would be trying to prop up the laptop on some ladder rung while, because their hand got tired. So these are all things that have real impact, but we tend to forget about them because we think, and maybe this is true, maybe it's true, but even that most of the time people are sitting at a desk and they're not moving through space when they're using the app. But even if that's true, just the small movements of the mouse and the clicking and the size of the buttons, the old research that goes back decades about, the formula for how big a button should be on a screen based on the distance someone has to move their mouse or tracking device in order to hit it accurately and not overreach it and not miss it. And, these are all things that can be built in, but if it has anything to do with physicality, we tend to just kind of not pay a lot of attention.
Yeah, no, I think
except for, I agree with you, the people who do the UX for automotive, they know they're listening and going, this has been my world for 20 years.
I think it's a nature of the fact that so much of the UX world has moved to digital stuff, and so you're just not moving.
But here's my point. nothing. You're always moving. Nothing is purely digital.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, there's
I
but,
mean,
you
I
know,
guess if
this
you
is
have an auditory, if it's purely an auditory interface
yeah, well, you
and
sometimes, you
you're
know,
sitting motionless and you're talking, it's
energy is
pretty.
important. The feng shui, there's like sort of like a, you know, like, are you comfortable at your desk kind of thing to like do good work?
Yeah, yeah. But most apps you have to require some physical. But motor movement in general is automatic and easy for us as humans compared to visual processing, auditory processing, and definitely remembering and thinking.
Well, there's a lot more of the brain dedicated to that. I mean, because some of the visual stuff is very easy. So, for example, if something's moving, right,
Right.
we
We notice
you
it
know,
right away.
so there are parts of the brain that are very good at doing visual stuff really, really fast. Um, there are parts of the brain that take a little longer, and I think the brain is just really, really good at doing a lot of the physical background. I mean, I background physical like existing in the world type activities, probably because I mean, we probably copied and pasted. You know, we had a good head start with the monkeys. You know, well,
What do you mean we had a good head start with the
our
monkeys?
evolutionary ancestors, like the
Yeah,
things that were a lot of the motor stuff and the
developed with them.
well, yeah, there's just I mean, some animals are better at sight, some animals are better at smell. Some, you
Yeah,
know, we obviously are doing like high reading and you know, speech and stuff. That's
that
kind of
other
newer
animals
stuff.
aren't
But
doing.
like,
Yeah,
you know, jumping, this is a thing that a lot of mammals have been doing for a very, 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 very
yeah,
long time, right? So
yeah.
they're just like the make like evolution is really honed in on
Except
the
I'm really bad at jumping.
well, humans are weird because we walk upright, so everything is a little is different, and we have defined motor skills. So I mean, so humans are very unique, and I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for what makes us human. We always think it's like the thinking stuff, you know, with
Yeah,
like the art and the creativity.
yeah,
I don't know if that's true. It may be
yeah.
the walking upright and the hand dexterity. Actually,
Yes.
that's probably the most important part of our development from a physical
Yeah. So
anthropology standpoint.
I guess if I was going to summarize then what we've been talking about, I guess I would say that as designers, if you are a designer, if you are a human factors person, UX person, I would suggest you don't just automatically assume that the physical movement you're asking people to do, just because it's common and people do it a lot, don't just discount it as being not important or not having an impact. Um, you want to think about it and think about what it is you're asking people to do in context of their environment and the situation and everything else going on. And remember that we're not just our brains are not just all about vision. There's a lot more stuff going on than just vision, right?
It's called embodied cognition when it should be called
Embodied
body
cognition.
thinking.
So don't
Embodied
forget about
cognition
body
is
thinking.
probably on my top 10 least favorite terms for things.
I always thought it was fun because it
It's
sounded so cool and nobody knows
um,
what it means.
my number
So
one least favorite term is heuristic.
I use that one a lot.
Yeah, I'm not saying I just wish it was named something else, right?
Well,
Like it
okay.
doesn't, you know, it just because like a lot like even in body cognition, like you can maybe kind of figure it out, right? Of based on
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So we're going to call it body thinking.
um yeah, I mean there's a Greek like to discover.
All right, we'll call it body thinking. I like
That's
that.
like the root.
All right, Guthrie, we managed to use up all the time talking about body thinking.
I
You didn't
spent
think we would.
Really, really great podcast content. Looking at a map of the brain and then just saying it out loud.
Well,
yeah, it was great.
I think you're being a little
great
harsh on
podcasting,
us.
Guthrie.
You're making a little.
Good
You're being
job.
a little difficult.
Yeah, well, I did that. That was my poor.
So we
decision-making.
have a long list of things we can and think we should maybe talk about on our podcast. So if any of you who are listening have any requests about topics that we cover, please let us know. You can
Hey,
get.
have you ever seen the proportional?
Wait a minute. Info
Yeah.
at theteamw.com. Yes, the
proportional brain
maps. Yes.
Oh, that's great, isn't it?
Yes.
If anyone hasn't seen it, they make a the somatosensory cortex I don't know, it's a graph.
Yeah.
And it's great, and it basically shows. I'll put this in the chat for you, so you can take a look at it at your leisure. It's really, really, really great. Where basically it has like the part of the body,
and
then how much
of the brain
is dedicated to that. So there's like
and which is the really large one?
Well, so there's like the larynx and the tongue, okay,
Yes,
and then the teeth, and then there's like a third of it is like huge lips and a nose and eyes, and it's like the face,
hand,
right?
And hand, right?
And then the next third is like this huge hand,
right?
and then it's like a little bit
The rest
for
of the
neck,
body,
a little bit for the hick, like So it's just a sort of very funny look at it, but it does give you a sense of stuff. So I encourage everyone to look that up. I searched for proportional brain, and it figured it out. Oh yes, and then hilariously, someone has sort of drawn like if it was proportional, what what a person would look like.
Oh, that's funny. I haven't seen that.
It's terrifying. I'll send this to you.
It's a big set of lips and hands, right?
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. It's a giant tongue, lips, and then like little arms and like huge hands. I'll send that to you. So, all right. I'll let you go. Thanks for chatting things through.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see.